As far as my family were concerned, as far as my mother and father were concerned, I left what was a safety net of a trade as a plumber to pursue a career in fighting. I told them by the time I am 25 years of age, I will be a self-made millionaire through this game. It just was not a life for me. The whole experience was heavy work. You know, I'd wake up at like 5:30 in the morning, I'd walk about a half an hour hike uphill, then you're on the cold building site and you're looking around with all these old people and their back is up and everyone's in a bad way. It was just a rough time for me, and I knew that I did not want to pursue this life. Why do this? Why work to the grave? You know what I mean? This is not what life is meant to be. So I left and I quit and I went home and I told my father, I said, there's not a hope in hell you're going to ever get me back on that building site again. And he essentially said, we'll see about that. And we had many fights where he tried to get me back onto the building site, but I did not. Although I may have lost the fights we had, but essentially I won because I did not go back to the building site.
Were they actual fights? You're not talking about arguments. You're talking about actual fights?
No. They were actual fights. You know, we threw down. This is welcome to Ireland. This is the way it is. You know, I heard a quote one time from Vincent van Gogh that really rang true. He said, he has dedicated his life to his art, and he has lost his mind in the process. When I sat and I thought about that, it sounded very familiar. I have given every single thing, every ounce of my life to this craft, to perfecting my craft, and I continue to do so. And in the process, I have lost my mind to regular society, to people who wake up at 9 a.m., who clock out at 5 p.m. They would look at me and say, I've lost my mind, but me, I have found it almost.
People say it's like 90% mental, 10% physical. I just think it's 100% mental. I think everything is an illusion, you know. The mind is what creates these things, you know. I don't know. I believe it's 100% mental, and I have a mind different than these my other competitors. There was two things that were really important when I was a kid. Could you play football and could you fight? And at that time I could play football. You know what I mean? I realized I was getting these nerves, and I was like, when the situation ended or whatever, when a fight ended, and I'd go back, and maybe other people would just carry on and jump back in and play football, or I'd sit back and I'd be analysing those emotions I had and saying, well, they're a weird emotion I just had. And ultimately that is what drove me to combat sport, to be able to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. That was my original reason for joining combat sports. So every time I would go to a boxing gym, or I'd be driving down to the gym, I would feel them butterflies that I felt that time, and I'd be thinking, yes, now I'm getting more comfortable, now I'm feeling these feelings more.